All nations that place a high tax on income produce thereby a negative incentive for technology innovation. So if you place a high tax on income, so high tax, produce thereby a negative incentive for technology innovation. So it's a negative incentive, so less technological innovation. And all nations in which technological innovation is hampered inevitably fall behind in the international arms race. Oh, so you go down in the arms race. Such a sad day. Those nations that, through historical accident or the foolishness of their political leadership, wind up in a strategically disadvantaged position, so destined to lose their voice in world affairs. You're irrelevant. You raise your taxes, so you're irrelevant now. So, if a nation wants to maintain its value system and way of life, it must not allow the highest tax bracket to exceed 30% of income. All right, so our conclusion is this last one. So we can't allow it to exceed 30%. My automatic flaw here that I'm thinking is like, what is like the level of like average of like, where does it, like, what is every other country, like who gets to set the 30%? Like, what if every other country set at 70% and we're the only nation at 30%? Like, wouldn't we still be considered strong in this reasoning here? But for this question, it's each of the following, if true, weakens it except. So I'm trying to weaken that it does not allow to exceed 30%. Another way that I would weaken that is by, even if we would lose our voice in world affairs, like maybe having that income is more valuable than having a voice in world affairs, like whatever we're getting from that. So go ahead. So this one is an accept. So we're looking for weekend. So if it, try this strategy and see if it works. If you write it down, like one, A, B, C, D, E, like, and just put a W if it weakens it, and see if it helps you realize like which one doesn't, so we don't forget. And then go ahead and put your answer in the chat. So we're trying to weaken that we shouldn't allow the highest tax bracket to exceed 30%. And so let's go ahead and start with A. So A, the top level of taxation must reach 45% before it starts to deter. That's an excellent weakener, right? Because it's like, well, why is it 30 and not 45%? All right, B says, making a great deal of money is an insignificant factor in driving technological innovation. And so we're, at top here, we say that, so we're trying to say that placing a high tax on income is a negative incentive. So like having like nations having more money negatively affects technological innovation. So if having a great deal of money is insignificant for actually having innovation, then that would weaken our argument, because it's like it doesn't matter what you tax, because it doesn't matter if we have money or not. I actually left B open the first time through, though. I thought that was the most tempting wrong answer for me. Okay. C says, falling behind in the international arms race does not necessarily lead to being strategically less advantaged. I like this one because we're saying, because in our stimulus, we say that those nations that wind up in a strategically disadvantaged position are destined to lose their world affairs. Well, but even if they do fall behind and if they don't lose that position, then it's like, what does it matter? We're breaking up this chain. D says those nations that lose influence on the world community do not necessarily suffer from a threat to their values or way of life. This one is wrong because it says that they are, here it says destined to lose their voice in world affairs. So if they want to maintain, so it's talking about if we want to maintain this value system and way of life. So if that's what our goal is, that's where we're getting our conclusion from. So if we take away the fact that you're not going to suffer in your way of life, and what does it matter if we have that or not? So that puts that weakens it. And then E, I just thought was so irrelevant. All of these, I was kind of like, I felt like they were just like breaking that chain, and I didn't love it. But E was like allowing one country to lose technological edge, especially as concerns of weaponry, would be foolish rather than merely a historical accident. Like, how does that weaken the idea that we shouldn't tax 30%? I couldn't even find a way to make it work. So for those of you that did not pick E, how did you think E weakened our conclusion?
I was torn between D and E.
So
And
how did you think E weakened this?
um because I was looking at the fact that I was looking at the terminology of saying it would be foolish, and I'm like, I don't know why. I really don't know why.
So that's why I really like the approach of, rather than finding the one that does nothing,
Mm-hmm.
lean into the other ones that do something.
Okay.
Because when you really lean into that approach, like I can't make E work in any way. Do you see that? Do you agree, Tia?
Yeah. Yeah. So it's right because it does nothing to the argument.
Right. It like yes. And so when I got there and I was like, does this weaken it? I couldn't come up with something, which is why I selected it. But I could come up with how all of these could weaken the argument.
Okay.
And so if you get stuck between two on a question like this, all you have to do is ask yourself. Sabrina actually sent me two, and I said, which one of these has the better argument for weakening it than the other? Like which one of these, like which one would weaken it? Like which one would weaken it more? And she was like D. So then she went with E.
So E is so sorry, I missed it. I kind of like I put my answer in and I went with E because I couldn't find anything. I was like, it's neutral. And I was like, that's gotta be it. Is that kind of like a good reason to
Yeah.
go?
Oh, absolutely, Anna. Absolutely.
Okay.
But like if you are, but sometimes like rather than looking for the one that does nothing, I just think it's such a better strategy to go through and be like, does this weekend, does this weekend, does this weekend, and try to make it work. Because if it moves the needle a little bit, it's going to be wrong. We're looking for the one that is irrelevant, which is Eva. So great job, Anna, on that.